Good morning, everybody. My name is Barry Schwartz, and this is the Search Buzz video recap. Today is Friday, June 25th, and this is the search news we covered over at the Search Engine Roundtable at SEOroundtable.com over the past week. This is not sponsored by anybody, so let's throw a sponsorship from my own company, Rusty Brick. We don't do SEO. Most people think I do SEO. I don't do SEO. I don't sell SEO services. I write about it as a hobby. My company, we build software. So if you need any software for web or mobile, custom for your business to make it more operational, effective, streamline back offices and stuff like that, I don't know, anything custom, we do it. Anyway, let's get to the content. Usually I don't throw a sponsorship in for myself, but I figured no sponsor today, I might as well. In any event, we have a lot to talk about today. Google released a Google spam search update on June 23rd. We saw a lot of other miscellaneous ranking fluctuations over the weekend. Google started to show non-AMP related pages in the top stories carousel on mobile. Merchant Center came out with a new policy, a new penalty around suspensions around cart pages and landing pages, and so much more. So stay tuned. Okay, so the first bit is, again, Google surprised a lot of people, including myself. I had no idea that this was happening. Not that I know everything's happening beforehand, but Google announced that there is a spam update that started to roll out on June 23rd. So today is June 25th, so on Wednesday of this week, Google released a spam update. Google wouldn't say much about what the spam update is outside of just linking to some generic documents about everything Google thinks is spam. So we don't know exactly what it targeted. Was it spammy links? Was it spammy content? Was it malware? Was it some type of form of really crazy hacky spam? We don't know. What we do know is it rolled out on June 23rd and it finished on June 23rd, which is unusual for a Google update. Usually Google updates roll out over multiple days, multiple weeks, but this rolled out and concluded on the same exact date. It was a global update. I asked Danny Sullivan, it was global, and he said it only covered web pages and image results. It did not touch, I guess, PDFs. It did not touch local results and so forth. Now I tracked a bunch of changes. Not so much chatter. A lot of chatter about about generic updates, maybe a lot of chatter around the announcement, but the tools aren't really all that lit up. So again, this is kind of like probably a very niche spam update targeting very niche techniques. Even the black hat forums that I tracked that are public, obviously public forums are different, are not showing much chatter and so forth. So that's interesting. If you saw any changes on June 23rd, that's when it rolled out and completed. You may have been hit by this spam update. If you know why, what type of spam it targeted, definitely hit me up on Twitter or just email me at on rustybrick.com/Barry. You can email me. All right. Over the weekend, we saw some ranking fluctuations. Nothing significant either, but again, maybe the same level of spam update. This is sometime over last weekend. Some of the tools are showing it. There's a lot of chatter as well. Not core update levels, probably the same levels of the spam update. People think maybe the spam update was over the weekend, but it wasn't. Google said it rolled out on that June 23rd day. So if you see any changes over the weekend, you are not alone. One thing I felt was interesting was that John Mueller, how do I explain this? So I tweeted the other day that that Google cannot win. I basically said that Google can't win because people were complaining when Google announced that there was a spam update. And people were like, oh, well, Google gave us a product reviews update, and then they gave us the June 2021 core update, then they gave us the spam update, then they gave us they're going to give us a page experience update, now they give us a spam update, and next week they're giving us another spam update, and then next month they're giving us another core update, and then the page experience update is rolling out and ending at the end of August. So we have all these updates. How do we know what's going on? And then, like, I basically said we can't win because if Google doesn't announce updates and they don't confirm updates that we think are updates, we think Google's lying to us. If they do confirm updates and we say you're doing too much, you're hurting us, you're killing us. So then all this thing comes around, like maybe there's a reason why Google doesn't give us these updates. And John Mueller basically responded to one of those reasons because Praveen said that updates have become synonymous with fear. And John Mueller basically said, yeah, change aversion is real. He said, especially when it's associated with something that potentially affects your income. Finding the balance between informing about changes and reducing worry, often unnecessary worry, is tricky. So maybe Google does consider about mental health or whatever. Like, are they worrying or causing unnecessary anxiety to the SEO, publisher, site owner community? And maybe they're not confirming all those updates because there's nothing for people to do. I'm not sure. It's very interesting to think about that, but yeah. All right, moving on. John Mueller also confirmed that quality updates, core updates, quality updates, anything updated related around quality can take several months for Google to reprocess and reevaluate your site. So again, generally when you get hit by a core update, it takes a while to see result changes, and usually that's several months. Of course, with the June core update, we're having a July core update next month, so you may see result changes sooner because Google's doing some type of other reprocessing. I'm not sure how this is going to work exactly, but we'll see. Last week, Google released the start of the page experience update, and part of that was on Thursday of last week. Google said that the top stories carousel will be able to start showing non-AMP pages. We kept looking and looking and looking, and not until Monday, the following Monday, so not Thursday, not Friday, not Saturday, not Sunday, but the Monday, 5 days after when it was supposed to go live, we started to see non-AMP pages show up in the top stories carousel, which is cool. So again, non-AMP pages can now show in this top stories carousel. So if you have a site and you want to pull off the AMP and try it out, feel free. If you have a site that never had AMP, see if you show up there. It would be interesting. Google has placed all of its Google search content policies into one central document. I linked to it on June 24th, so if you want to see them all in one place, they incorporate overall content policies for Google search feature policies, and also feature-specific policies. So the search feature policies might be like advertising, dangerous content, harassing content, and so forth. The feature-specific policies are probably around autocomplete, feature snippets, Google Discover, and so forth. So you can actually get all the policies in one place, which is really nice. They just created that document, I think, recently. I'm not exactly sure when, but sometime in the past couple months. Google, Danny Sullivan, again said that it does not use sentiment specifically for ranking purposes. Google said this, I think, earlier last year, and now they're saying it again, that sentiment is not used specifically for ranking purposes. Google's John Mueller said that they have no notion of page authority. Now, it's very interesting for them to say that, of course, because obviously there is no domain authority, and Google's get asked all the time, does Google use DA? No, Google does not use DA. It's a MOS metric, and Google does not use MOS metrics. But Google did say last week, which we covered, that Google does have an overall site quality metric that it looks at. And over the years, kind of Google's been wishy-washy about site level metrics and page level metrics and how that all works. But Google's John Mueller basically said we don't have a notion of page authority. He said that recently on Twitter and so forth. Google has updated its help docs specifically for the Robots.txt file and the structured data documents. There's a whole list of changes they made. Well, I think it was hundreds of changes, to be honest, based on hundreds of responses. So it's pretty cool to see Google constantly and effectively update those documents. Nice to see that. Google Merchant Center announced some very interesting information this week. One is they created a new policy specifically around what they're calling inaccurate availability due to inconsistent availability between the landing page and the checkout pages on your website. This is replacing what they call the delivery issues policy, and this new inaccurate availability policy basically checks to say, are on the product page, on the product landing page, you say this product is available, but when you hit add to cart and it goes to your cart, is it still showing as available? If not, you could be suspended. You'll get a warning, and if you keep doing it, you'll be suspended from Google Merchant Center. Very interesting to see that. Google then lists a whole number of reasons why this may happen, not by purpose or maybe on purpose, so definitely take a look at that if you are in Merchant Center. Google has released a new feature, or is testing a new feature, as of last night. The Vox covered this, which basically shows you a search box that says, and here's a screenshot of it, it looks like the results are changing quickly. If this topic is new, it sometimes could take time for the results to be added to reliable sources. Basically, Google's saying, since this topic is so new, since we don't have much information about it, we don't know if the results that we're showing are reliable. So it's very interesting to see that Google's testing this according to the Vox. And I'm not able to replicate it myself, but it's definitely being tested according to Google, and Danny Sullivan even has a comment there. Google is also testing in Google News in specific countries a Google News country level filter. So if you're in India, for example, and you do a search in Google News, in the web dropdown, some people are seeing an ability to actually filter by country for India. So very interesting to see that. I cannot replicate that as well. Google's also testing search refinement buttons with brands in it. So if you do a search for, I don't know, a knapsack or a air filter or something, and Google might show you different colors of knapsacks, different sizes of knapsacks, but also say knapsacks basically from these merchants, from maybe Amazon, from Best Buy, or whatever it might be. And you can see here's a screenshot from Ryan Muse of this in action. Pretty cool. Google's local pack is testing section buttons that trigger query refinements. This is from Claire, who basically noticed that on a local panel that has those buttons that basically show overview, updates, products, reviews, and so forth. When you click it, I can't replicate this, but it basically changes the query in the query box and thus changes the search results as well. Previously, it would just take you to those pages or those sub pages on your local business profile. Sorry if the frame's a little bit different, maybe more exciting, but my SD card stopped in the middle, so I had to put a new one in there, and then the adjustments are all off. But anyway, back to the Google My Business news. Google My Business is testing new reports in Google My Business Insights that basically show you rush hour reports and about your company reports. Specifically, rush hour reports is kind of like what you see in Google Maps or Google Local, where it shows you the popular times. Basically shows the business when they're most busy, when they have most foot traffic. And the about your company report basically shows you what customers are saying about you in Google Local, Google My Business. Maybe it's pulling from reviews, maybe it's pulling from whatever. Basically kind of sentiment data about your business, which is pretty cool. It's being tested. It's a pilot report. Most people can't see it. I personally cannot see it. Google also, this is weird. So Google My Business Insights reporting data obviously is great, but often it's delayed, has issues, and so forth. For the first time ever, I've seen actually Google post a message saying the data may be delayed. So Google actually has a notice in Google My Business Insights saying the data may be delayed. So that's interesting that Google actually spent the time to actually make a notice about that. On the Google Ads side, Ginny Marvin gave 2 examples of when your quality score metrics may not be showing up in your reports, even for spending a lot of money. So Robert Brady basically said, anybody ever see where you spend over $13K in spend in 30 days, but it has no quality scores showing? And Ginny Marvin said this could happen when keywords don't have enough exact match impressions. Additionally, keywords need recent exact match impressions to maintain quality score and may turn back to null when there isn't enough recent traffic. So if you're ever missing that data, that might be why. Google also is delaying its plans to block third-party cookies. They were supposed to do it like in 2022. They're pushing it off now to 2023. And with that, they're actually going to pause the FLoC testing, which everybody's been talking about. There have been a lot of resistance, a lot of pushback from massive companies like Amazon and Apple, I don't know Apple, maybe Facebook, tons of companies, including even Mozilla and different browsers and so forth. So it's very interesting to see Google kind of like step back a little bit. And there was a great poll by Matt Tutt, who basically asked, where do SEOs go when they need help? He asked this question on Twitter, so to be fair, but there was almost 900 results, and most people said they go to the Google search forums, then Twitter, of course, because it's a Twitter poll. Reddit was pretty up there, and other. In any event, I'm sure you all guys get all your information from, no, I'm just joking, but I trial and error and testing and colleagues and so forth, as well as Twitter and Google search forums and Reddit and all these great online resources. In any event, thank you so much for listening to the Search Buzz video recap. My name again is Barry Schwartz. This is the search news we covered over at the Search Engine Roundtable, seroundtable.com over the past week. Again, today is Friday, June 25th. Sorry about the glitch during the recording. New SD card, all good. Everyone have a great weekend, be safe, and see you guys next. Goodbye.